Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. We're talking Big East today. A little recap review series continues with the Big East. I am your host for the week, Jim Root, joined by Kai McEwen and Matthew Cox. Fellas, we've got a big weekend ahead of us, so we are knocking this out on a Tuesday night. Kai, tell the people why we're moving this up.
Yes, Jim, we're heading to the Ozarks, Lake of the Ozarks. That's right. You seen the show Ozark? It's exactly like that. Good old Missouri, right around where where Jim and I went to school in at Mizzou. We're excited celebrating our good friend Chris. Gonna have an awesome time at his bachelor party.
Shady Gators, look out, baby. We're coming, Jim. Yeah, pretty excited about it. I got some family in town this weekend. My sister moves to Chicago officially tomorrow, so the full Cox triumvirate will officially be present. So that's a big development for our great city, our region. But yeah, we'll be going down to the old country this weekend with the boys.
Pretty huge for you, Matt. The magnet of Matthias has brought his whole sibling clan up to Chicago. That's exciting. My brother is here. Kai, your siblings are not here, so
They're not.
too bad.
They're all in St. Louis.
You are neglected. But folks, we have, like I said, a wonderful Big East discussion coming to you. The most rabid fan bases in Power Conference basketball. I think with basketball being the number one sport, we see a lot more passion. Not that there's not passion elsewhere, but the Big East fans just really get after it. A lot of strong takes, usually very informed fans. So a tip of the cap to you, ladies and gentlemen, fans of the Big East. We're going to go through last year, talk a little bit about state of the program going forward. Not a 2024-25 preview, more a how do we feel in general about the state of what that program is dealing with. Of course, we'll have a short little Roots Roundup, get you caught up on news and notes. There's some coaching news that must be discussed. Little bit of reviews all the way down at the end of the podcast. We like to save those now. That is the new strategy. So if you want to leave a review, please do. Love the 5-star variety. Feel free to ask a question in there. We will answer it at the end. Treat it like a mailbag if you so please. We've got one, so there will be one at the end of the podcast if you'd like to stick around. Shout out to Mr. J. Pitty Joe Paskov, the composer of our opening tunes. And follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. Same on Instagram. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes. Subscribe on YouTube. We love that. We are live on video right now on a Tuesday evening. So if you're able to join us, hop in the chat. We love that. Guys, that's it. That's all the intro housekeeping we need to get through. Let's get into Roots Roundup. Roots Roundup is our news and notes section, folks. We are talking coaching news, a little realignment. Not going to get you all the way caught up on the transfer portal because that will come in a discussion of winners and losers a little bit further down the road. We want more dust to settle. There's still a lot going on right now. It seems like end of May might be a decent target for that, just based on the amount of uncommitted names out there, the rosters that still have holes to fill. So we're going to wait a little bit on that. But we'll start with key headlines, and that's realignment. Guys, Missouri State, Matthew, program very near and dear to your heart, headed to Conference USA, joining New Mexico State and Sam Houston State and Kennesaw State this year, lest you forget. It is a strange little conglomerate of conferences now joined by your Bears. What are your thoughts?
I hate football. Let's just dovetail into the basketball versus football debate that's been running wild on Twitter. I have a very strong take on that, Ty, but I also have a very strong take on this development here. It's just a very annoying. Like the Valley has one of the truest identities, I think, of so many teams that are within its ranks. In Missouri State, yeah, I mean, it's very clearly a football move, and that sucks. But that's sort of normal now, and I probably should just get over that.
Yeah, it's all football. Excuse me, it's FCS football, man. And Matt, we like FCS football, but this is a weird one because Missouri State. Well, now that I look at it, I'm surprised. I thought they were like a long time member of the Missouri Valley. They only entered in 1990. Still a very long time, right around when we were born. But yeah, it sucks. Realignment sucks in general. Some stuff's good, but this one's weird. I don't like it. Football's king, though. What can you do?
Yeah, Creighton left, Wichita State left. Those are more basketball-fueled moves, obviously.
Yep.
But this one is very clearly based around football and getting the football program up to FBS. Whatever, fine. In basketball realignment, Grand Canyon and Seattle are headed to the WCC. This is an interesting one. The way that was kind of pitched and sold in the article, Oregon State and Washington State are only there for 2 years, and then they may try to regenerate the Pac-12 using that brand name. So this kind of backfills those slots once those two programs join. We know Grand Canyon is a financial powerhouse because they are publicly traded and for profit, so they certainly have plenty of money. And then Seattle, a very big geographical location for this league. I saw some people from the WAC a little bit relieved to see the financial bully leave, to see the biggest geographical outlier leave.
Yeah. Yep.
Matt, I know you're a big fan of the WAC. You've been a Seattle supporter, especially that coaching tree. How do we feel about this now with these two programs joining the WCC?
Excited for WCC. That's like, I think, one of the few winners of sorts, at least near term college basketball related. I like the league. I think it's shaping up to be kind of a cool, fascinating, like many conflicting school identities and dynamics, but also geographically aligned. And I think just a lot of fun up and coming programs, along with the known hitters at the top in St. Mary's exist. So I think I'll just take the positive light, Jim. WCC, cool. Happy for it.
Yeah, great for the WCC. Grand Canyon is going to give, I'll say, St. Mary's a run for their money. I think Gonzaga is still the king until proven otherwise. But sucks for the WAC. They lose two of their better programs last couple of years. It's still going to be a great conference, but without the powerhouse in Grand Canyon, they are really turning into one. They do go down a notch or two in strength.
Yeah, and the other positive news out of this for the WCC is that it does not sound like Gonzaga is going anywhere anytime soon. The Big 12 was not as interested. They don't bring football, so it's a tougher sell, even though that is a league that seems to value basketball quite a bit with Kansas, Arizona, et cetera. They've got a lot of big-time brands. It does not sound like that's imminent, and obviously Gonzaga to the Big East seems more or less dead at this stage. Who knows if they'll try to regenerate it soon, but yeah, that's it in realignment. We've got to talk this mini little coaching carousel domino effect we had here as Jeff Linder from Wyoming took the assistant job at Texas Tech, taking over for Dave Smart, who's now at Pacific. Surprising to see Linder leave a sitting Mountain West job for a Big 12 assistant job. But Kai, it's a steal. It's a coup for the Red Raiders. You get a really, really smart mind on the staff down there in Lubbock.
Yeah, incredible for Texas Tech. Is this a raise? Is Linder getting paid more at Texas Tech than he was at Wyoming? I can't imagine him leaving a head coaching position if he wasn't. But maybe he's tired of dealing with the NIL stuff, the transfer stuff, heck, the injury bug that's bitten Wyoming the last couple seasons. Maybe he's frustrated, or he's making more money. Probably the latter.
And then the resulting domino, Matthew, is Green Bay's Sundance Wicks. Sonny Wicks, an energetic fella who spent a year at Green Bay re-energizing that program that had tumbled all the way down to the depths, the true depths of Division I. He's headed back to Wyoming after leaving the staff there to take the Green Bay job. He is back at Wyoming. Matthias, was that a one-year wonder at Green Bay, fueled by Noah Reynolds and hiring his brother onto the staff, which he, by the way, hired his brother on the staff again at Wyoming? Or is this a true indication of Wicks is going to build something on top of what Linder had already laid the foundation in Laramie?
Well, real quick on the Linder thing, Kai, he was going to make $700,000, and I think is going to make just under half of that at Texas Tech, if I have my facts right. So
taking a half salary pay cut.
Real quick, I think this is like going to be a bigger thing. We've already seen some of it. Jim, is that not right?
I don't believe that.
Based on what I've heard for lead assistants in power conferences, I can't imagine he's only making $350. That would shock me a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. Matt did his research. I didn't. I'm just kind of
real quick. I just think it's generally like, Jim, you said like, wow, shocking to see a guy leaving Mountain West job. I think in today's day and age, we sort of have to remove the conference affiliation and just say, okay, what is Wyoming in the general spectrum without, like, it's obviously a very good program, but if you remove the Mountain West affiliation, I think it sounds less surprising. The pay cut does sound eye-opening, but
if that pay cut's true, that's insane.
Right, it is. Again, it's many things. It's the Linder McCaslin friendship that I guess goes back way, way, way like early 20s. But then also just the momentum of all these like big power conference schools. Like you have a chance to win there, and you have a chance, I think, to put yourself in position to get like a really good job where if you're going to be always rowing against the current at these sort of in-between programs with NIL issues, potentially Linder hated the fan support the last couple of years. I mean, like there's multiple articles that came out like Why are no one in the stand? And so I don't know. I think these schools, some of the coaches are like, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go make good money at a power conference school and feel safe and have security and actually put myself in a better spot in 3 years. Anyway, Jim, all that aside, um, yeah, I mean, God, the Sonny Wicks thing, I think he's legit. It's easy to point to Noah Reynolds and be like, wow, 1 year, yeah, you have that guy. But I mean, they were really good with like the 2 games he missed. And I mean, they kind of tailed a little bit late, but I think he's a really good coach. I'm not going to give him like the sort of asterisk just because he had a great player. I think he's a really good coach. Okay. I think both are true.
What he did at Green Bay was absolutely insane, incredible. That roster was not that good outside of Noah Reynolds. For them to basically win the Horizon just blew away all expectations. They got better. Kind of the middle part of the year, struggled a little bit in non-con, but I mean, 1 year in, obviously, he seems like a great coach. Jim, we'll see about the guy replacing him. Feel bad for the Phoenix a bit there.
Yeah, we got to talk about this. The Green Bay Phoenix pivoted from Mr. Wicks, who is a very well-regarded assistant on a smart analytical staff, rebuilt the program from the absolute depths of hell that the nepotism hire of Will Ryan took it down to, and they decided to go with someone who's never coached a single college basketball game in his life. Doug Gottlieb, literally like reported as sports media personality, is he's being hired at Green Bay. He is
And
not
still is,
stopping his
Jim. He
Fox
still
Sports
is.
show.
Yeah, that's
Yes, he is
insane.
continuing the radio
That's insane.
show that is 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. This
Can't imagine that.
I cannot give this a louder, redder, harder F. I just don't think he's going to care that much about this, considering the effort that goes into hosting a 2 hour radio show and staying even mildly informed about some stuff. Not that Doug Gottlieb really cares about being informed. He's more of a take artist. This just Kai feels unserious from a guy who wants to get into coaching, and quite honestly, from an athletic director perspective, that like this is the move you're going with. Imagine being like a guy who's grinded on assistant staffs, wanting a head job, and you're like, oh no, Doug Gottlieb screaming into a microphone for 15 years got him a job.
Hey, it's just like media, right? It's athlete X gets the job over guys who've been in the industry forever. We're
not salty though. We're not salty.
I don't totally. Apparently, Goodman. I think Goodman tweeted that he was in the running for the Green Bay job before Wicks got it, which is kind of interesting. I guess there's a tie there. Is he a Wisconsin guy? I don't know where he's actually from.
Yeah, guy who's from Milwaukee. His dad coached UW Milwaukee at one point.
Well, there you go. Okay, yeah. It's still though. I guess why not if you're Green Bay? Bring in a name, right? You just got your awesome coach taken away. Okay, bring in a big name who's going to give the program attention. Maybe you'll get some good players coming through the door. I can't imagine they expect much success from him from a coaching perspective. How can you? He's never coached. I understand he played the game at a high level. It does not equal 1-to-1, right? Didn't Kenny Payne play basketball? There's your example.
Yeah, at least he's on a staff. At least he has some semblance of what it's like to run a program from day to day. I'm so out on this. I'm sure the Field 68 guys are going to rah it because he worked with them, but Matt, you said you're giving it a D. I'm going to stick with my F.
Jim, I'm always going to look for just any reason, any sliver of a iota of a hope to see the glass half full. When I saw that he's going to continue to do the radio thing on top of coaching, that's when I went ahead and crossed off my initial D and I replaced it with a big fat F. So my official current grade is an F. So, yep.
Yeah, I just cannot believe that he's treating it like a part-time job. It's a Division I head coaching job.
The reason why so many former players don't do as well, and again, I know that example's starting to be debunked recently, but like the work that it requires to be really good, like all the best guys are just like sort of like work obsessive type dudes. It's just kind of what it takes to be really good. And I just don't think Gottlieb, I mean, that's 3 hours a day that he's going to probably not be coaching. That's maybe an overstatement of the time it's going to take, but like the prep, the radio, the actual thing, that's real time. I don't know. That's real time to me.
And we talked to other major coaches and been like, I have to spend so much time fundraising to get any reasonable players, to get good players to stay. I don't really understand how he's going to be able to do that. So this is just.
I like Doug though. I think Doug knows ball. That's my hot take. No one will agree with that take. I understand that it will not fall on.
He has some good
on
takes.
kind ears,
I just
think
don't
Doug
think.
Knows ball.
I don't think he gives a crap what anybody else says. I think that's a problem. I think he's pretty egotistical, which is, hey, he can be entertaining. I don't disagree with everything he says, but I don't know if he's the type of guy who can coach a program and inspire and things like that.
yeah, inspire players and go into a living room and talk to families. Like I don't know, I'm not buying
He's
that.
not
I'm not sure
exactly
he's going to
polished.
ever. Yeah, he's going to listen to assistants that know what they're doing. Like, is he going to hire a good staff and be humble about like taking ideas from people? I don't know.
Yeah.
We shall see. We shall see. It's a unanimous fail for the Weavers,
Eh,
unfortunately.
I'll go D minus for the name.
nice.
Okay,
Because I
I'll
think
Two
go.
I think
D's.
Green Bay is trying to make a splash.
The Weave loves golly. That worked really well with Will Ryan, didn't it? Man, that was a great experiment.
Yeah,
Yikes.
I don't think this is anywhere near a good spot. I'll go F minus. I don't even think that's a real grade, but I'm going to throw the minus on there. The other coaching bit to mention, Amir Abdur-Rahim got an extension through 2030 at South Florida. This is just one of those like raise the buyout kind of thing, make it harder for him to get poached by Florida State or insert school X coming next offseason, but good for him. I mean, just remarkable run, 3 seasons or maybe 4 seasons in charge from one win Kennesaw State to winning the regular season of the American in his first year. Amir Abdur-Rahim knows what he's doing. He is a
Agree.
proven coach on the sideline. Recruiting news, class of 2024, imminent, enrolling soon. 4-star point guard Trent Perry is headed to UCLA. Matthew, a former USC commit. So we love to see them cross the borders there in the La La Land. We know Kobe Johnson went the other way. Actually, no, wait, sorry. He joined him going from
Yeah, he went
USC
the
to UCLA as well. A lot of guards on the UCLA roster. You're going to tell me Sky Clark's fine with playing 12 minutes a game? I don't believe it.
I hope he plays 12 minutes a game. I don't feel like it's going to go well. But that's where I like this team is Sky Clark just sort of as a spirit animal off the bench, Jim. Just kind of one of the guys, one of the bench
if there was
monsters.
suddenly a ruling that you cannot play anyone over 6'8", UCLA might be like a top 5 team. But unfortunately, they don't have anyone really over 6'8", and they're going to play against a lot of teams in the Big Ten that do have people that exceed that height. So it's an odd identity or shape of roster for Mick Cronin. But
It'll be
we'll
weird to see
discuss
Mick Cronin as sort of a team with general height disadvantages. Yeah, obviously, especially the Big Ten, that'll be pronounced as well.
Yep. Class of 2025, Kai, our guy, Kim English. I'm sure Providence fans are like triggered even just hearing us say our guy, but landed a top 40 recruit, Jameer Jones. He's headed to Providence. I saw some people saying like top 25 star. Well, not where I look. I saw a 4-star at 2 different sites. Top number 32 recruit at 24/7 Sports. So that's what we were calling him. But hey, nonetheless, a clear big win on the recruiting path for Mr. English. We'll discuss Providence more in depth later in this episode. So stick around. Transfer portal, yes, like we said, winners and losers episode coming probably end of May, maybe early June. I know we keep promising it, but hey, there's still a lot going on, and we don't want to just half-ass that kind of an episode because it'd be rather important. 2 commitments worth mentioning, though. Great Osibor committed to Washington, Kai, over Louisville, over Texas Tech. Heard it was quite a bidding war. And the released amount for Mr. Osibor is north of $2 million of NIL deals. I thought Umar Ballo getting 1.2 million was wild, but this is through the roof. It's just kind of setting the new market every single commitment.
Yep, I don't get it, Jim. He's obviously a great player. I'm not sure, is he an All-American? He's an All-American candidate, sure, but he's not a top 5 player in the country. I'm not sure he's top 10. I think he probably would have gone to Washington anyways. A good chance of it with his coach being there. 2 million is insane. I can't believe this is the market for these type of players.
Yeah, market just continues to get shattered. Now, the cool part about it is, I believe his mom is a school teacher, his dad's a cab driver, and so it's like this is mega life changing money for the family. I'm always happy for the players getting this. Yeah. It's just like I can't believe there's so much NIL money floating around. I haven't thought about donating a single dollar to my school's collective, Matthew. So I'm just surprised there's that much.
Jim, I then I looked at the budget that I use repping right now, and I'm just like, I don't think my money really puts a dent in the bucket when you got some your Mark Cubans and insert other alumnuses donating their fair share. So Jim, I'm gonna keep my money to myself for now.
Yep, I'll let the deep pocket folks just kind of treat it like they're spending money on. It's like buying a video game for them. Like, all right, now I've got a better team in my video game. Cool, have fun. Also, Kason Pryor filled the void at Louisville, their 5 spot. I have questions about this. I think he's a nice, versatile piece, can shoot a little bit. He's mobile, but he cannot defend anything, both on the perimeter and inside. And Matt, I fear this as a 5-man in the ACC. I know it's Pat Kelsey's system, but I'm a little less high on Pryor, especially for $1 million.
It's a big number. I love Pryor though, so I'm not going to say anything bad of him.
Have you seen him guard anyone laterally?
He's a little bit. He's just kind of like out of control all the time. He doesn't know how to move his limbs completely yet. I think he has like defensive upside yet, but
Oh boy.
yeah,
Fire?
I mean the talent's insane. Like I just think he has like freakish fluidity, but like you're right, Jim. Sometimes he looks uncoordinated defensively.
Oh no,
Uh,
I think he is concrete feet slow laterally. That's
yeah,
my personal assessment of
he looked
watching
bad in
him.
some A's. He did look bad. He was exposed for sure, and that's why he didn't play like consistently. I mean, I know there's some like they were deep, and he's not always locked in mentally, but like yeah, I think there's reasons he probably didn't play as much as we all thought he should have talent wise last year.
I must have only seen his good games because I love this guy. I think he's awesome. Like
Yeah, he's
awesome.
fun. He trust me. Hey, he was a my
Defensively,
guy's feature baby. Of
offensively,
course, the we told you about him last year.
I think he's awesome. I'm not sure he's like he's not a 5 at Louisville. I mean, I guess
It's a
he can
tournament
play
team.
it, but yeah, Pat Kelsey maybe. And that
You want an
system,
early
I
board
think
bet,
is gonna be
Matt?
fun. That's gonna be
I
fun.
want it,
Fun.
Jim.
Early board bet? Sure, we can do. I guess
Louisville
the
tourney.
roster's not final. I won't lock it in yet.
He can run the floor. I'll say that. He can run the floor.
He can absolutely do that. That's where he's a good fit. Uh, Defensively, I think they're going to have some major concerns. But hey, that's neither here nor there. We'll discuss that later. The one final fact here in the Roots Roundup: the 2025 Maui field was announced today. Released. Surprisingly, John Rothstein did not scoop this. Typically, he has the Maui scoop before it gets out, but the field is Baylor, Texas, Oregon, NC State, USC, Seton Hall, UNLV, and Chaminade is back. They're every other year. They'll be back in it in 2025 after skipping this year, 2024. Kai, it's a solid, if unspectacular field, but the most exciting part of this is slated to be back in the Lahaina Civic Center, and that's all that matters.
Very happy to hear that, Jim. Yes, the tragedy. Was it a volcano, hurricane? I actually forgot.
Just fire, wildfires.
Wildfire. Yeah. Obviously a big shame. Had to move it from the site. Now we're going to be back. Can't wait. Interesting field. I would say not the strongest field we've ever seen at the Maui. In fact, maybe one of the weaker ones in the past several years.
The bar's been high. It's been a high bar.
But like
Yeah,
NC
it's been a
State,
high bar.
USC might not be good. Seton Hall questionable. UNLV questionable. Chaminade.
Yeah, no like
this is not a good
Duke,
not a good
Gonzaga, Carolina, Kansas. There's no blue blood here, and even the fun part, like I know that Mark Pope is like receptive to taking Kentucky there. Calipari never did,
Right.
so it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see Kentucky get in this event, maybe 2026.
Mhm.
All right, that's it for Roots Roundup, fellas. It's time to talk Big East, our season recap series. We kind of go through how each team fared relative to expectations. Are there any caveats we want to give, injury type asterisks for each team, and then discuss what we said in the preseason and how far off we were. Maybe we'll gloat, maybe we'll make fun of each other, make fun of ourselves. There's certainly some of both in this episode coming. And then also a little bit of state of the program. How do we feel going forward with the coach, the stability, the kind of what we've heard NIL wise? We obviously don't have direct knowledge of that, but we kind of read everything and try to consume that. So we'll give you a little sense of that as well. Start general, guys. Nothing really egregious in the all conference area. We didn't, go to bat for a random guy that stunk. We didn't tear down somebody that ended up being awesome. Right about, between the first and second teams, you can kind of flip different names there. We were very high on Donovan Clingan. He obviously didn't make one because he had some injury stuff and didn't play huge minutes. But
Right.
I think suffice to say, Kai, the tournament showed that he is awesome. I don't feel bad about being high on Donovan Clingan.
Absolutely not. And it'll be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. So we were fine being high on Donovan Clingan. Yes.
Right, you are.
Safe take.
Right, you are. We did have one board bet to recap. We didn't have any on the ACC. I get to do a little celebratory dance here. Woohoo. St. John's finished one game ahead of Villanova in the Big East standings. That was our head-to-head board bet. Kai and Matt both went to Neptune, and they probably will never return to planet
Shoot.
Neptune.
What was the board bet? Sorry.
Big East record, St. John's versus Villanova.
Holy cow.
You guys
we like
submitted
Kyle
with the-
Neptune. We're big Kyle Neptune guys. Me and Kai. 20-20 is his Big East record through two programs.
Game back.
Yeah.
Game back at St. John's there, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Boy.
But yeah, I mean, we were basically like, oh, Villanova is. Matt was like, they're almost in the top three with Creighton, Marquette, UConn, and Yeah, Kyle Neptune assured that that was not the case.
Jim, real quick, just to kind of beat the Kyle Neptune thing right to the ground to get it started here. Keith Urgo has emphatically had two better teams after Neptune left. This year, I think they finished just below, and I know the record was bad, but like, I don't know, I'm just looking at I mean, they were pretty damn near the same caliber of team, I would say, this year, which was a 13-20 yes. down Fordham year. Look back 2 years, Neptune was, including me, by the way, heaping praise on him for having a relatively great year at Fordham. Zoom out and doesn't look so good. So
yeah. I would say that's maybe not exhibit A, but it's certainly a big example of why we have tried to hone in on staffs and assistants. And if we see somebody smart joining a staff or leaving a staff, try to maybe factor that into our evaluations of teams and tell you folks. And I think you can make a very strong case that Urgo is much more responsible for that good Fordham year, and Neptune has struggled to replicate what Jay Wright had going on the main line. We talked through the standings that Rob had. I think the most crazy thing was he had Georgetown 8th, and we were all like, what in the world is going on? This team's terrible. Kai was like eviscerating the roster. We'll get to them when we talk through them one by one. But we were all like, this team is clearly 10th, maybe 11th. And, obviously they were still 100 spots better than DePaul, but they were also 130 spots in KenPom worse than the 9th place team. We were not shocked that Georgetown stunk.
Good.
All right. We will now go team by team in the final standings order. This is to give credit to the teams as they finished rather than going through the preseason stuff. But right off the bat, hey, UConn, you're doing all right. You're probably feeling okay as in terms of state of the program right now. Arguably the best team wire to wire all season last year. I know Houston and Purdue kind of flirted with it, but UConn was amazing the entire year. Just an insane 2-year run. 12 straight tournament games, winning by double digits. They're stomping teams on the biggest stage. Back-to-back national champs. Kai, any thoughts on the state of the program other than to say it is pristine, elite, and almost unfair?
Yep, they're in a great spot. They have arguably the best supporting staff in the country. I think Hurley said it multiple times. Take his word for it. Danny Hurley, a coach that I think we really liked at the lower mid-major levels, like Rhode Island, and he was at Buffalo too, if I'm correct. We had doubts at UConn.
Wagner.
He wasn't at Buffalo.
His brother was at Buffalo.
Bob was at Buffalo. But Wagner in Rhode Island, Hurley did a really good job. At UConn, he struggled to start. He did. It's a fact. He underperformed. Tournament, regular season, he did. Lately, he has dominated, and got to give credit where credit's due. Even if it is partially due to the amazing coaching staff he has still risen his game. Clearly a fantastic coach. And really what I think, Matt, is impressive about UConn, they put together a roster that fits so well together and clearly have good chemistry every year. And he said that's key to success too in the pressers he's done. So yeah, they're in great shape. They are a top 5 program in the country in general, and they look great.
Yeah, they check I mean, they've actually developed some young guys, like sort of the lost art of the good teams the last few years since, as Sean Fendler calls them, the Van Wilders. Everyone gets so old, but their young guys have been really good first year in year 1 and year 2, and have had major impacts, right? And they've kind of filled out the rest of the roster. Smart. It's an insanely smart staff. Like if you're I don't know what fan base has a right to feel better about where they are as a program and the edge they have on their competition going for. Like even like Kansas or Duke or Alabama.
I'd feel way better to be UConn than a Duke fan right now.
Right. I'm trying to think what's one. I wrote down those. Houston, pretty good spot. Arizona, pretty good spot, I think. And then Iowa State's hard to ignore. Outside of that, like I think UConn's on a tier of their own above those schools, like just as a fan base, NIL, prestige, coaching, number one, momentum, all that stuff. Yeah.
Number one program
I think it's UConn and Kansas are like the only two you can even discuss as having, being in that conversation. On our preview pod, I said the biggest coup of the offseason was them keeping their coaching staff together after a national title. And then they did it again. How do they keep getting away with this? They just won another national title, and they're keeping both Kamani Young and Luke Murray. It's infuriating, but it speaks to the resources they have. Those guys are making a ton of money. Yeah. They're not going to leave for just any job when they have incredible job security. They're winning like crazy. They're making a bunch of money. Man, the one thing we gotta take on the chin here, guys. We did say they were nowhere near last year.
Yeah, hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, wrong.
underrated Stephon Castle, probably in particular.
Yeah.
Matt, you said this was your equivalent to UCLA in the Pac-12, where you're like,
Did I need some context to that. I just feel like I didn't, man.
you basically said that you didn't think they were going to miss the tournament or anything, but you're just like, oh, I just don't like the fit and the kind of, the hype they're getting. You were a little lower relative
Okay.
to, it wasn't
Yeah,
quite the
that was
UCLA
stupid.
extreme of, hey, they're not going to make the tournament, but
That was
yeah,
dumb.
no, turns out UConn's amazing. And I fully expect them to be top 7 every single year going forward, as long as they keep that staff together.
Yeah, I mean, every player individually was just better than I thought they'd be, for the exception of Klingon. But I think that's also part of the structure of the team and the way they operate as a unit makes them all better too. But I mean, and the player development piece. I mean, again, just when you don't bet against a razor sharp staff of this caliber, you can't do it.
I'll go out on a
Cannot
limb
do
and
it.
say they will not be even close to last year, this year. Okay. I'm saying it
I
again.
agree with that.
I'm saying it again.
I agree with that.
At the risk
I
of,
100% agree
I'm
with that.
doubling down. There's no way they sniff this
And
year.
Kai, I'll say that, and I'll say they will still be the best team in college basketball next year, potentially.
Nope.
Which
No
both
chance.
things can be true.
No.
Both things can be true.
We'll see.
No
We'll
way.
see. I'm not ready to make any sweeping takes quite yet. I'm gonna sit on it, think about it more. Next up is Creighton, finishing second in the Big East. I would say a good year. Them and Marquette, the top 3 all kind of hit expectations. Top 3 seed, pretty strong. They didn't like blow it in the postseason at all, but the depth never really materialized here for the Blue Jays. We talked about the concern with the 4 spot on the preseason pod, and Mason Miller, Isaac Trout, Jason Green never quite seized it. That really their best lineup was playing small with Shireman at the 4 and then Farabello on the floor. John Lawson from Memphis was an absolute zero, like did nothing. Yeah, maybe a little too high. Matt, you and I picked them to win the Big East. We were wrong. They were 4 games behind UConn. But overall, it's Greg McDermott. They've still got Kalkbrenner coming back. I think there's a rock solid foundation. I think Creighton's pretty well set. Incredible fan base too.
Yeah, and like the only reason maybe I was underwhelmed is like Trey Alexander wasn't like all-American awesome. He was awesome, right? But I think I had maybe super unfair high hopes for him. And I think maybe if he went to that level where he's like a surefire top 5 or top 10 pick in this week draft, we'd maybe be saying Creighton was a Final Four team. But again, they lost by 6 to a really good Tennessee team. So I mean, again, I want to overreact to the they second weekend 25. I guess they lost 10 games. They did lose a lot in conference late I guess early on that was somewhat injury related, but I think just the lack of the depth they had, and they lost some close ones, Kai. But yeah, it's Creighton. It's just the most stable program floor in this conference right now, not named UConn and maybe, I don't know, Marquette. We'll get to some other ones.
Yeah, super stable floor, top 25 next year. I don't think they're as good as they were this year, but I think the program's in great shape. They have great bookends coming back, and McDermott's a top whatever coach in the sport.
Yeah, you got to feel pretty solid if you're living in Omaha, fan of the Blue Jays. I know there's like some talk about what is McDermott going to take the Ohio State job, but I think seems very fine there. I would be shocked if he left for anything but like a cream of the crop job.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, very, very good spot for the Blue Jays. Third, Marquette, the only other team to make the NCAA tournament from this league. I'm going to go through the bottom 8.
Shocking.
I know they were all right on the bubble, but yeah, Marquette, a third team in the top 3 seed lines, a 2 seed actually. I would say, Kai, this was for all you golf fans out there, it was a par. The season was a par. They were not quite as good in the Big East as they had hoped. They got eviscerated by UConn, but they made the Sweet 16, albeit a very disappointing cold shooting loss to NC State in that round. And they're like the most, despite, how good Kolek and Omax were from the portal, they're not losing guys to the portal. They have like the true internal development thing going. It seems like Shaka has everything more or less rolling.
Yep, he's got it rolling. I think Cam Jones will be an All-American next year. I think they're going to be really, really good. I have to think about this a little bit more, but probably number 2 right now behind UConn. And I think UConn's kind of head and shoulders above the league right now. But right now, Marquette's
Yeah, agreed there.
Number 2. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not
Just super
not there
cool.
in Marquette too, but we'll
Who's
get to
2? Creighton.
Creighton for
Xavier.
me. I
Xavier.
think I had Xavier maybe 2. I love Xavier.
Yeah,
next year.
Yeah, Xavier's
X-Man.
good too.
I just think don't bet against Shaka, man. I think all these guys. See, he's developing guys. Like every guy.
I know, that's what's
coming
cool.
back
It's
is like not a transfer. He's developing players, and they're getting better and better every year.
Truly a unicorn program right now. One of the very few, and I think doing it well. I mean, they just maybe you have Tyler Kolek healthy the whole year. You get one of those guards fully healthy, and again, you just somehow you miss the DJ Burns freight train. And again, that's just like such a kryptonite matchup for how they were constructed. Didn't really have a true bruising five. Um, but yeah, I think it's sustainable though. Just like the internal, we're going to do it this way because of the success they had, because of the pros they developed too. I think that's the key thing. Like you can sell that patience thing if you're Shaka, and the kids will drink it if you have some, you got some pro guys out there who have really capitalized on it. And I think they're starting to kind of add to that slowly.
Yep. Yeah. Marquette also fantastic shape. These top three programs just look really good, and they've each got their own individual reasons for fantastic stability. And for Marquette, it's really just they just don't seem to lose people in the portal. It's a must be an awesome culture there. Buzzword in all kinds of coaching discussions, but it seems like it's very, very real in Milwaukee. Next up, a surprise number 4 finisher in the standings. Now, not number 4, Ken Palm, but Seton Hall snuck all the way up the standings to number 4. They won the NIT, topping our beloved Sycamores in the final. They beat UConn by 15, something that almost no one will ever be able to say ever again, maybe, with the way the Huskies are rolling these days. Um, Guys, what do you think about how the year went? Matt, I'll go to you first here. I know the Pirates are probably disappointed they didn't make the tournament, but they kind of made the best of a tougher roster situation. And you were high on the big three, the guards, the Davis, Dawes, Richmond. You had a nice read on the Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, inconsistent a little bit at times throughout the year. I know they weren't fully healthy for a good chunk of the offseason. And is always, he bemoaned the team early, but like he really heaped praise on them late. And I think they looked like the team. They proved they were the team that everyone thought they were, tournament caliber, and perhaps undervalued because they were kind of slated in a tough Big East and didn't really turn it on until late. It's just a tough spot, Kai, because you can't parlay that momentum from the NIT into anything. Like there's no yield from that. And I think that's exacerbated by the fact they don't have any money. And so I guess in the big picture program stability thing, relative to some of these Big East schools with some richer alumni bases, whatever, that's a bummer because yeah, they were really good, and I think they were just too good too late, and just basically got a bad break. And who knows, maybe they go to Sweet 16. You can cash in maybe on an extra guy or two, you get one more guy in the portal, and you feel better about yourself. It's just tough to sustain momentum there, though.
Yeah, I think Holloway always has a pretty solid floor just because of his defensive ability to coach defense. They're going to always be good on defense. Weird team though last year. Inconsistent's right. They lost 7 games by 18 plus points. That's insane for a team that won the NIT and was honestly way better than I thought. They beat UConn, but they also lost 7 games by 18 plus points. That's insane. The state of the program is question mark, man. And I'm guessing it's because of NIL, but 9 guys transferred out of the program. Your entire roster pretty much next year's transfers, and frankly, they're not great transfers, if I'm being honest. Question marks galore for the program, Jim.
Yeah, I think from both fans and Holloway, there's like frustration around the NIL situation. Like they're just not able to pay people the way they would want to keep guys. And then also the new ones that they have to get, that they're not able to hook big fish. It's frustrating. And I would normally say, okay, at least you have an alum who loves the school in charge, and he's a very proven, competent head coach. But if you can't stabilize NIL, like maybe he's going to be tempted by another job and be like, I want to be someplace where I feel like I'm competing resource wise with my peers. Because right now Seton Hall is not that in the Big East. So I don't know, nervous for that. Matthew.
I do like that they got a guy in Shaw that is built to win in those tough environments. I mean, he was at St. Peter's and did yeoman's work there in like a, notoriously financially decrepit situation there. He's a guy that can do a lot with a little. And I think it's what they're going to have to do the next couple of years until this NIL bonanza cools down. I kind of believe in Shaw. I know the roster didn't look good next year. I know it feels bleak. I just feel like they're going to be in the mix more than you think they will be the next 2 years, I'd say.
Just lost too much talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe in him. I just like
I think he's
going to
really
be doing
it
from behind the 8 ball every single year with the way the roster turns over on him. So it's going to be tough. And yeah, like I said, if he gets tempted by somewhere else with more money, that could be rough. All right, number 5, St. John's. Weird team to evaluate the year on, guys. Because Rick Pitino didn't make the tournament, and that's frustrating. And Matt, we had a funny discussion towards the end of our preview pod of like, if this team's anywhere near the bubble, the NCAA is forcing them in. And turns out, wow, the committee had other ideas. They did not shove the Red Storm into the tourney, but they did finish 21st in Ken Palm. Like there were some very positive signs here. They played UConn really tough. They had some big wins. Patino had, the motivating stuff, Kaya, the pressers talking about how slow laterally his guys were, but they did somewhat figure things out. I don't know. How would you assess year one of the Patino era just based on all these kind of crossing factors?
I'd say
Very similar to. Go ahead, Kai.
Wow, Matt, I did address Kai, so I'm gonna go with Kai.
Oh, I have a good thought. So okay, go ahead, Kai.
Well, I thought they got a lot better as the year went on. I think that's indicative of Patino's ability to develop a team and coach. It was all transfers. Tough to get a group to collaborate, right away, as many teams have figured out. But he certainly got them playing good at the end of the year. Should they made the tournament? If the bid sealers didn't exist, maybe. And I had a future on St. John's. I would have loved them to make the tournament. Program, great shape. You still have Patino. He's pretty old, so it's not going to last forever. But I still think he's a fantastic coach. I think he's already recruited better in the transfer portal than he did last year. I think it's only going to get better as the program kind of gets more notoriety. It had some before, obviously. It's building them in momentum. They were good last year. So state of the program is good, Matt.
Yeah, it was just very similar to Seton Hall. They got good late. They won their last 6, and then who played them closer, or who played UConn closer than St. John? I mean, I think that's sort of it stinks that St. John's and Seton Hall too just had the UConn freight train that was waiting for them. But they're fine, man. They got money. They got Patino. I know it was a bumpy ride and it was like a very dramatic soap opera thing, Jim. But I think that's Patino, and I think you're going to bet on him every year, even when his roster doesn't always look great. But it's going to always be good enough, I think, to be in that mix. We'll see how long. The thing is, like, what's the longevity for Patino, right? Like, it's tough to talk about St. John's in 5 years from now, but like, we can probably talk St. John's next year and year beyond, and then who knows what happens after that, right? But right now, they're in good spot.
Yeah, St. John's is like me. Don't really know what the 5-year plan is. So,
if I may, maybe a little less tweeting on Rick Pitino's part. He sends some pretty weird tweets. It's just like, just stop doing that.
There's no way he's typing them, right? There's no way he's typing them.
He is, just based on the context of the tweets. It's just bizarre, frankly. I don't think he should be tweeting much anymore.
Some of the thoughts. There's no way they're a top 20 team. I don't know. Do we like? You're kind of right. You guys were right. They weren't a top 20 team. They were 21st in Ken Palm, but they also didn't make the tournament. I don't know. I feel like this was such a wash in terms of evaluation on them. They were a strange team because early it looked bad, and they went from 12-4 to 14-12 to 19-12. It's just kind of a streaky sort of season for the Red Storm.
Yeah, they're a hard team to peg for sure.
Yep. Next, Villanova. We get to Planet Neptune here. Matthew, I'll go to you first. You were very high on the Wildcats coming in. We talked up the roster big time. We're like, if this is a top 5 team, if Jay Wright's coaching it, I still kind of believe that. They have so much less of a plan. They look like somebody imitating Villanova rather than Villanova.
Yeah.
And last year went poorly. They couldn't beat bad teams. They kind of inconsistent. And I'm just kind of nervous going forward. Where do you stand, Mr. Cox?
The roster just didn't fit well at all last year. Like, it just didn't. And I'd argue it was a coaching issue, mostly just the misuse of some of those guys like Hakeem Hart and TJ Bamba. I thought just didn't feel ever comfortable. And it was a great platform for Eric Dixon to look like a star. It's like, hey, we're going to play really slow and do a bunch of ISO stuff, and Dixon's going to be the beneficiary of that. But it's just like, that's not the Villanova that we thought we were getting with Neptune, as sort of a continuation of the Jay Wright beautiful game. So every year now, I just feel like they feel just like a money bag throwing team at roster and talent, which they have a lot of apparently, and they're probably gonna be pretty good because they got good players. I don't think Neptune's like a complete idiot, but he's certainly nowhere near the floor raiser or program elevator that his predecessor were, or as some of the other Big East coaching counterparts are.
Boy, yeah, I called it the ultimate test for Neptune last year, Jim. He failed. He outright failed. I think he should have gotten fired. I don't know how you are okay with that. That roster was awesome on paper, and frankly, just like individually, that team is great. Mark Armstrong, they're not upset that he's going pro. That's hilarious to me that he's even going pro. Okay, good luck, buddy. Uh, Next year's roster blows. If he can't win with a good roster, good luck. This team might not be top 100 next year, Jim. Just like reading the tea leaves. I have concerns about Villanova's state of the program.
Yeah, my hand's hovering over panic button for them. And maybe for them, panic button is firing Neptune next year and getting a lot better. But it seems like other people have caught up to them NIL wise, or some of their donors are like, I'm not paying for that man to ruin my money anymore, which feels like this is going to be sort of a Walking Dead type year, lame duck. And like I said, the roster itself is not good. And if Neptune can't maximize good players, he's going to minimize bad ones. I fear for Nova next year for sure. Next up, Providence. We're going to have similar discussions for Providence and Xavier, given that both you sort of have to give a mulligan to because of injuries on the front line. For Providence, it was Bryce Hopkins, who we waxed poetic about in the preseason podcast. However, Matt, you did harp on how thin the roster was, and that makes you more prone to one injury kind of submarining your season. And despite Devin Carter being like a human hero, just a monster from everywhere, all over the court, now going pro, Providence trailed off late and the offense was horrific. And that's kind of my overall state of the program is you have a great defensive coach. I have zero faith on the offensive end.
Right. I don't have any faith in the some of the younger, like Corey Floyd and Gary DeWall. We were promised some bigger things from those guys, and they really just weren't at all impactful or consistent. And I think, Jen, that speaks to I think maybe part of your criticism of English is on the offensive end. I think specifically developing young guards into performers, right? Like his best guards today have been mostly older guys that he's kind of inherited and I think stuck in a good system. I think defensively he's really good. So I think that gives him a high floor. English, I think, kind of has more of a stable floor type of feel to him. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like I wanted more just from some of those younger guys, Kai, that I thought had a little more talent and potential. And that's my concern going forward is because I don't think he's going to be like, you're not going to be able to stack the roster with like 9 proven dudes at Providence. You're just not so you're going to have to find some development, some diamonds in the rough. And that's where I question Kimmy long-term.
First of all,
short term.
it's great. It's great that English finished in the Cooley zone. That's hilarious to me. 59th in KenPom. Yep. That's basically what Ed Cooley did for the last
21 and 14.
So. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, annoyingly, I watched Providence probably more than any other team in the country this year, just by happenstance. Big East games came on early. Yeah, it was Devin Carter, who I'm buying all the stock in the NBA. I think
he rocks.
Awesome, and he should be a top 10 pick. Yes, all the way with that take. But their offense sucked. It was him and Oduro. You're playing through Josh Oduro, who wasn't that bad, but that's not going to work in the Big East. Clearly didn't work. The defense will always be good, I think, under Kim. I think he is a good defensive coach, like Jim said. But yeah, some big misses on the talent. Duval's horrible. 88 O rating, looked lost all the time. And man, I don't love the transfers coming in. It's going to be probably more of the same next year, Jim. But it's a worse roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm generally on board with that. I think he needs to hire like an offensive wizard. Have the humility to be like, I don't have it figured out on this end. My teams don't really take that good of shots. Honestly, like so much of their success last year was Devin Carter hitting from like 27 feet.
Literally.
He was
just
ludicrous from
shots.
insane range. Hit some huge ones late in games from like the logo from the bench, like with his heels on Kimmy English's toes. It's just they've got to figure out that end because I believe in the defensive end. They play their butts off. They're very disciplined. They kind of force the ball to the wrong guys, the guys the offense doesn't want to have the ball. And that probably should continue, but they've got to figure it out on the other end. That's kind of the wrinkle to figure out going forward for Providence.
Hey, maybe Bryce Hopkins bails him out, makes him look good next year. We'll see. That's sort of what I think you're hoping for. It's Providence.
Certainly possible. Certainly possible. I hope he's healthy. Not all the injury recoveries are the same. So hopefully he's ready to go. Next up, Xavier, like we said, injuries. Took out both Jerome Hunter, Zach Fremantle, torpedoed the front court before the season really even started. They're left playing Abu Usman and 4 foreign freshmen. that kind of hurts. No matter how well the backcourt played, Claude developed, McKnight looked pretty good. Oliveri had a fantastic year coming from Rice, but just not consistent enough, not strong enough on the glass. But Kai, I have no fear with them going forward. Sean Miller's a great coach. He's identified good mid-major talent to bring up. I think Xavier is in totally fine shape.
Yeah, if you just look at the KenPom like starting point, end point without context, I think you think, oh, Xavier really underperformed. I think it's the exact opposite. I think they overperformed. I think Sean Miller overperformed with the injuries to your best player, Fremantle, basically, in your entire front court to perform the way they did, finished above Providence, by the way, in KenPom with Usman, with guys like Olivari and Claude. It is truly impressive, and that shows development by Miller, X's and O's by Miller, just all around great, in my opinion. I know they didn't finish well record-wise, didn't make the tournament. The program's in great shape, and yeah, the transfers they brought in next year, this is going to be a very dangerous team.
I think I'd rank Xavier like as the fourth. I feel the best about this program right now. And yeah, it's funny we're talking about them in the 8 spot here, Jim, but just like as I went through it, and there's a lot of really good basketball obsessed, well invested, great fan bases in this league. It's why it's just a fun conference. I mean, Xavier's right up there. I just feel so good about Sean Miller, as Kai said. Really impressed last year, like legitimately very impressed, despite some eye scratching performances, like just watching them play really tight in some big games like Houston, a few others. This team very much overachieved last year, despite a lot of shitty things that went against them. I just think you feel even better about them bouncing back in a big way if they can just avoid a lot of bad luck again, injury wise.
Yep. And they seem like they've shielded themselves better from injuries next year. We don't know if Hunter will for sure be back. I know he got back from maybe it was a heart issue, kind of a medical thing, and then he got hurt immediately. I think he might have torn an Achilles. So his status is up in the air, but Fremantle's back. You got a bunch of good guards. I'm a believer, big believer actually in the Muskies next year and going forward. Now we get to Butler. Matthias, your Bulldogs, your pet Bulldogs. I know Kai is the one that's actually met Butler Blue, but I think Matt has more affinity. Yes, right.
The best of
Matt
boys.
has more affinity for this program than anyone. Kai kind of hit it on the head. I'm not sure they're cracking the top half of the conference or becoming a tournament team. Yep, that's basically where they landed. I mean, they looked promising, 15-7 and 6-5, but then they really tailed off. Matt, I don't know where you land. We kind of ripped on Posh as being the lead guy, and the fact that Patino didn't want him, and I generally feel like that's what it ended up for them last year.
We knew it'd be a better year than the year before, and it was upsetting to see them not seal the deal and finish strong in conference play. Like I think we saw some of the real upside in the non-con, but again, when they stepped up to the Big Bad East, I think that's where they really kind of met their maker. And we've seen some programs like this in the Big 12 and some of the other really good leagues. I just think that Butler, I can't ever get like this team was a Horizon program not all that long ago in my mind. I know I'm old and aging rapidly, but it does sort of feel like great program, great fan base, all that stuff, right? But just like, man, the bar is really, I just don't feel like as, they're not a Marquette to me. They're not really a Xavier to me. They're not quite at that level yet. Creighton, they're not quite there. They're just not quite.
Yeah, I mean, they lost Brad Stevens. That hurts. But they're okay. They do seem destined for, I would say, capping out at 6 in the Big East right now. That just
Right.
seems what they are, based on the talent they've been getting. Now, Brooks and Telford were way better than I expected last season. In fact, I was pretty impressed with this team more times than
I was
not.
too.
I do think Posh's addition by subtraction, because he did, frankly, take them out a lot of games. DJ Davis was clearly better with the ball in his hands last season. I think that Mott is still a pretty good coach. I'm not sure he's an elite coach to where he can raise a roster like next year's to a top 4 finish and really compete at the top of the Big East.
Yeah, I think the budget issues are real. That was even before NIL stuff. They were like by far the lowest spender in the Big East. And I don't know what their NIL situation is, but like Kai's saying, you can kind of back into what it is based on the players they're getting. And they're trying to find like the bargains. Like, all right, we'll bring in Andre Screen from Bucknell and Landon Moore from St. Francis.
Right.
And
Yep.
Jamie Kaiser, the really undervalued asset who played like crap at Maryland this past year. Like they're not getting the top of the line guys out of the portal. They're trying to have to scrape together talent. And that seems very indicative of where they're at and kind of caps the ceiling. But at least, you've got a smart coach. I don't think they'll bottom out again the way they did in his first year when injuries killed them and they just sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, it just seems kind of like make tournament is a good year at Butler now.
I agree. I just like how many top 5 finishes will they have in the next 5 years? I would bet 0, right? Just
Yeah, I'll bet 0 also.
you know what I mean? I don't know. Just kind of
Yeah,
big
landscape
picture.
changes.
That's how I
What,
feel.
top five? Yeah, maybe get one. I don't know.
This league's really good. It's
Yes,
a
it
really good
is.
league.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
you can list 8 amazing, or I think maybe it's 7 amazing coaches so fast.
Yeah.
It's just it's really tough. Let's get to Georgetown, guys. I don't know how to describe their year other than disaster, horrible. I mean, they sucked defensively. They were horrific. And coming into the year, you just kind of knew. You're like, there's no size. Supreme Cook's the only big man. If they have to play Ryan Mutombo, that's bad. Well, they decided not to and didn't matter anyways. They still got torched in the paint. Brought in a bunch of guards that more want to score, like Jay Heath, Jaden Epps, Rowan Brumbaugh, I think are much more focused on their offensive games than any sort of defense. Yeah, we spot on. Kai, to quote you, there's almost no chance they finish 8th. This roster sucks.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what bore out. They lack talent, and it seems like it's going to be a lot longer build for Cooley than maybe initially intended.
It's strange. I thought they had resources, so it's a little weird the type of guys they got last year and are already getting this year. They're not hitting the marks in the transfer portal. Maybe it's because they've been down for so long. But putting it in context of Georgetown under Ewing, this would have been Ewing's second worst season. Cooley's last year.
It's not good.
Ewing coached for 6 seasons. This would have been his second worst. So that's how bad they were last year. They were not any better than last year, really. They were barely better than last year. They sucked. They didn't know. I saw them live. I thought they had a really good half against Villanova, and then they just kind of fell apart. Disinterest by players. I didn't think Cooley was very interested on the sidelines when I watched him. But I do think he's a solid coach, Matt. I think, again, he's a floor coach guy. He usually has a pretty solid floor. It's not there yet. He's not up to the floor. Maybe he needs a couple more years.
That's my thing is like that's what I thought too. And I didn't expect a lot last year at all. I expected fight and competitiveness and some consist. I know they were really young, which kind of hurts.
Yes.
But I'll say this. I'd rather be a DePaul basketball fan in the next 5 years than I would Georgetown basketball fan. I just think the way the Cooley thing at Providence ended and the way he ended up at Georgetown to just how dejected he looked. I mean, remember a couple times he's like left the huddle. Like there was like those viral.
He was checked out.
He checked out. And I mean, I know this is like a reset year. You got Malik Mack, the hometown kid that you can maybe sell a little bit of hype. I just don't think there's any substance. And they don't really start getting it going, Jim. I feel like Cooley, while I love him as I think he's whatever. Like I like him as a good guy. I don't know, whatever you want to believe, but what did or didn't happen behind the scenes. I just don't think he feels fully at home with this job. I don't know if I don't know if he regrets taking this job. Just a gut feel.
I sort of buy that, and kind of to Kai's point, like the caliber of player they're getting just isn't very good. And I thought like bringing guys home to the DMV and potentially the name of Georgetown. I don't know what the money situation is for them, but it's clearly not that good. Malik Mack's awesome, like great. Micah Peavy is a Big East player for sure. And I don't know what else. Like Jaden Epps scored, but he is terrible defensively. Curtis Williams coming in from Louisville, like not to do a full preview of next year.
He's a losing basketball player, Jim.
I don't think that roster's good, and it could be a very rough year again. I know I pissed off some Georgetown fans in the Trilly Donovan Discord because I ranked him last, but I'm just not a big fan of that roster. And going forward, it doesn't feel like there's any momentum. And to Matt's point, number 11, DePaul, actually has a modicum of upward momentum, and there's nowhere to go but up from the disaster year they had. But I think I'm with Matt. I think I'd rather be a DePaul fan than a Georgetown fan right now.
Next 5 years, Chris Holtman, Ed Cooley, give me DePaul, baby. Let's go Demons.
And let's talk Demons. Let's do it. I mean, there's nothing to say about last year other than it's arguably the worst power conference season by anyone ever. It was
insane.
Horrific. Their only wins were home against South Dakota, Chicago State, and Louisville. Kenny Payne. Oh, Kenny Payne.
My gosh.
3-28, finished outside the top 300 in KenPom. it looked ugly coming into the year, and I've credited Kai with a couple of spot on assessments from the preview pod. Matt, you nailed this. You like, oh, coming to the year, there's always something you can talk yourself into with DePaul. You said they've always had just enough talent, some pockets of hope. With this roster, I don't see any of that. And boy, there was no reason for hope. They were just bad on both ends of the floor. They quit all the time. They lost every game by 25 plus. Like they were just getting torched. It was time for a reset, and I think Holtman's a great guy to try to stabilize things.
He's fantastic. It's an actual basketball coach that the bar for their hirings the last few cycles have been so bad. Good for Stubblefield that he got canned before the end of the year. Somehow I think Kenny Payne walked away with like a more embarrassing reputational stench than Tony Stubblefield, even though DePaul was like 100 spots worse. Like DePaul was emphatically worse than Louisville last season, even though DePaul beat them at home in that stupid who the hell cares Big East ACC challenge thing. And then it was just disaster the rest of the way through. And now you actually get a real basketball coach who I know he's bringing in a bunch of mid-major all-stars or low-major all-stars, but that to me is a roster I can get behind 10 times out of 10 with Chris Holtman holding the clipboard. I know people don't think that he's as good of a coach, but I know we're going to stubbornly stick to the Chris Holtman tether Kai until we get washed away, I guess, because he's good. He's good.
He's the best coach they've had since Ray Meyer. DePaul?
It has to be.
I mean, I think
low bar.
That might be true. So yeah, it's a low bar, but yeah, we'll see what happens next year. I don't think they're going to finish like 9th. I think they'll finish 10th. But
yep.
It's kind of a fun group of transfers. I mean, you got a lot of mid-major coming in, but there's not like it's not without upside. The guys coming in, so I think and if he starts winning a little bit, I think it'll kind of snowball. Not saying they're going to be a tournament team in the next 3 years, but I think they will be categorically better than the last couple.
It's a bunch of guys that at minimum don't suck. Like
yes.
they're competent, yes. And you can kind of throw 5 competent guys on the floor for a while. And yeah, the upside's kind of limited with it, but Blocker is a former top 40 recruit from Arkansas.
Who got really buried good.
On a team that just completely went down the drain. Just it takes some swings with some of these guys. Try to just keep 5 decent players on the court at all times. And hey, that's immediately better than what last year was. You can't feel much better. Like you're feeling like you're in 10th spot in Big East right now at best if you're a DePaul fan, but for a while it was you're 100% in last. So maybe you're creeping up the order just a little bit.
That's a preview, but you got a lot of shooters next year. Almost every single player on this team can shoot.
Jim, real quick, DePaul's 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th best players are all better than Georgetown's by a mile.
Oh, you mean like the bench? Yeah. That's hard to
I'd
say.
also say
Georgetown's freshmen.
Their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th best players are also all better than their best player last year. So
yes.
Sorry, Deshaun
Who was
Nelson,
their best player last year? Deshaun Nelson,
for sure. Yep.
Oh no, it was probably Jalen Terry when he came back late. It was
he sucked last year.
Yeah, no one was good. Who cares? This debate's not worth having.
Nope. All right, real quick. How many teams in the tournament discussion? Cannot believe it ended up at 3 teams easily in, and then no bubblers. We all said 5. Felt fairly good about the Nova and either St. John's or another bubbler sneaking in there. Didn't happen. So sorry, Big East, but I expect that number to increase next year, despite all the power conference conglomerates happening in the Big 12 and the SEC adding more teams. So expecting a bounce back year for them. Right at the end, a couple fun quotes. Matt, I bet Georgetown wins a big game or 2 at home. I bet they beat one of Creighton, Marquette, UConn, and Villanova. They went 0-18 versus non-DePaul teams. So that one didn't quite turn out. Sorry, Hoya fans.
I hate that they won both DePaul games. They won by 2-1 or something. God, it's so annoying.
Yeah. And then we had a quick discussion on the Ed Cooley return to Providence. And I don't know if we nailed anything harder than this one, guys. We're like, Cooley's going to hang around. It's going to be really frustrating. Providence isn't going to be able to pull away like they want. It's going to be about a 10-point spread. I said 72-64 as a predicted final score. Nailed the margin and ended up 84-76. The spread was 11.
Nice.
we hit that one right on the nose, and that was 4 months in advance. So hey, every once in a while the Weave gets something right, folks. There you go. Overall, league feeling better, feeling up. Matthew, after going, especially just with 3 teams, do you feel fairly solid about it, as long as they stay a little healthier?
Yeah, that was huge. And also, I think we got it right last year. I think 5 teams were supposed to be in the tournament. Just the committee is not always, privy to who's good at. They're not really generally ball knowers, Jim, like we are. So,
That's true.
yeah, I
Plus
think
bid
five
Steelers.
is
Without
bid
bid
Steelers.
Steelers, I think 5 get in. So
Yeah. At 5 is the floor this year. I think. I mean, we're not going to predict now, but I think 5 to 6 you feel good about of 11 teams, half really, and a higher floor too. No, I don't think we see any bottom barrel horrible teams either. Again, I think the Big East looks more and more like the Big 12 every year. Just with their consistency and their how good the meat is, Kai. I know it's a big step, but
Yeah,
the meat's really good. The old Big 12, the 10
I'm
team
with
Big
I'm
12.
with
top
Kai.
is
Not
really
yet.
good. The top is
Not
really
yet.
good.
Like there's still a bottom in this league.
There's a
DePaul
clear
and Georgetown have a ways to go. They were,
Yeah, they're climbing. It's a little higher, but it's still got a ways to go.
yeah, I mean, basically starting from the bottom of the Everest if you're DePaul. So see if they can
304.
get even halfway up the mountain. Yep. All right, fellas, that wraps it up, except for one quick review
Yep.
all the way back up to the top, calling it. Thank you for listening to the Big East preview. Stuck around for the review. We appreciate it. Kai, I'll kick it over to you, Mr. Czar of reviews.
Jake the Juliet says, great pod. No idea how they remember all these players. Super in depth. Love how knowledgeable they are. No clue how they remember all the names. There's thousands of coaches and players in D1. And do you really actually know all these people? No way they deserve less than 5 stars for the dedication to the sport. But weirdly find myself wanting more unhinged, biased takes. More making fun of programs for being bad. Clowning coaches for being weird. Stuff like that. Too much objective analysis. This is a fair review, Jim. Maybe we should be more hot takey. Let's get some Gottlieb in us.
We are scared of being wrong as a group, generally. We're scared of old take exposed. You said this dumb thing where we've like early on, especially, we're so worried about our credibility and like overstepping in a take. Yep. So I do think it's maybe time to go out a little more on limbs, and that's how we ended up with that St. John's board bet. I was like, you know what, fine, I'll say like I have Villanova rated the same, but I'll take a board bet. Like, be bold, especially board bets. Who cares? We don't lose any money. It's just ribbing among each other. There's no real stakes in those. So I think it's a valid point from Jake to Juliet. We appreciate the kind words, and he's got a very good critique here, Kai. We're going to work on that.
Indeed. Matt, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'm swinging heavy with the bold predictions this year. I feel really good about a couple of them last year, Jim. So I'm starting to kind of get the itch to be hot take guy. Once you get a couple right, you kind of you feel yourself a little bit. And so I think I'll be coming for all of the just kind of spraying the board with some board bets this season.
I look forward to it because 2 years ago Matt kicked our ass on board bets, but this past year we kind of buried Matt. We kind of buried Matt, Kai. So hopefully we'll get some more loose cannon type stuff from Matthias that we can jump on. All right, that's it. Thank you again, Jake and Juliet, for the review. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We are again recording on Tuesday night, so hopefully you'll be listening on Wednesday or Thursday, enjoying the weave in your earwaves. We're going to be down in Lake of the Ozarks celebrating our good pal Chris. Excited for that. We'll be back next week, likely talking Big 10 or Big 12, doing the season recap, continuing that series. So we'll catch you then. Until then, enjoy the start.